I brought my 4-year-old son Aaron to my parents' house for Thanksgiving, hoping for some family support after finalizing my divorce. I was optimistic about rebuilding relationships, especially with my sister Tiffany, who was visiting from out of state. We needed this fresh start. During dinner preparations, a piercing scream erupted from the living room. I rushed in to find Aaron crying uncontrollably, his eyes red and swollen. Tiffany stood over him holding an expensive perfume bottle, while my parents laughed instead of helping. My heart stopped. Growing up, the dynamic in our family had always been crystal clear. Tiffany was the star, the golden child who could do no wrong, while I, Bertha, was the responsible one expected to make sensible choices and clean up everyone else's messes. This pattern started when we were children, and somehow, at 32 years old, nothing had changed. "He just wouldn't sit still," Tiffany said defensively as Aaron wailed, his tiny hands rubbing frantically at his eyes. "I was just trying to make him smell nice for dinner." I scooped Aaron up, rushing him to the bathroom sink. "It's okay, baby. We need to rinse your eyes out." "Come on, Bertha. It was an accident. My father Frank called after me. No need to make a federal case out of it." My mother Diana's laughter followed me down the hall. "If he's blind now, maybe he won't see he's a burden too." My father joined in. "Well, at least he smells better now." Their words cut through me like knives as I turned on the faucet, gently tipping Aaron's head to rinse his eyes. How could they be so callous about my son? Their own grandson? 2 months ago, I'd discovered my husband Jackson was having an affair with a coworker. Our 8-year marriage dissolved practically overnight. Suddenly, I was a single mother, working as an elementary school teacher, with barely enough income to cover our small apartment and childcare expenses. I'd been hesitant to accept my parents' Thanksgiving invitation, but part of me hoped that family could be a source of comfort during this difficult transition. Aaron had always been sensitive, with allergies that seemed to flare up at the slightest provocation. My family consistently dismissed his needs as me being overprotective or him being too delicate. "It hurts, Mommy," Aaron whimpered as I carefully rinsed his eyes. "It hurts so bad." "I know, sweetie. We're going to make it better." I fought to keep my voice steady, despite the anger building inside me. Aaron's eyes were alarmingly red, the skin around them already swelling. Whatever designer perfume Tiffany had sprayed directly at him was causing a serious reaction. While applying cold compresses to Aaron's eyes, I noticed Tiffany's phone on the bathroom counter. She must have set it down earlier when using the bathroom. A text notification illuminated the screen. "Did you do it? Did you teach the brat a lesson?" My blood ran cold. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. I tapped the screen to read the full conversation. "Tiffany, going to teach Aaron some respect today. Kid needs to learn that when adults want to do something, he obeys." Unknown contact. "Did you do it? Did you teach the brat a lesson?" Tiffany. "Just sprayed perfume right in his face when he wouldn't let me put cologne on him. Should have seen him scream. Parents thought it was hilarious." I nearly dropped the phone in shock. This wasn't an accident. My sister had deliberately hurt my son, a 4-year-old child, to teach him a lesson about respecting adults. And my parents found it amusing. Aaron's sobs had quieted to hiccuping breaths as the cold compress provided some relief. I held him close, my mind racing with this new, horrifying information. "Bertha, is dinner going to be delayed because of this drama?" My mother's irritated voice called from the kitchen. In that moment, looking at my innocent son's swollen face, something shifted inside me. The pleasing daughter who constantly sought her family's approval began to dissolve, replaced by something fiercer, more protective. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about Aaron. With Aaron settled on the couch with his cold compresses, I marched back to the kitchen. My hands were shaking, but my voice remained steady. "Tiffany deliberately sprayed perfume in Aaron's face," I said, looking directly at my sister. "I saw your texts." The kitchen fell silent. My mother stopped stirring the gravy. My father's fork paused midway to his mouth as he sampled the stuffing. Tiffany's face registered shock before quickly morphing into indignation. "You went through my phone? That's a complete invasion of privacy." She turned to our parents. "Do you see how she treats me?" "Bertha, that's not appropriate," my father scolded. "Tiffany was just playing with Aaron. You're overreacting as usual. Playing? I repeated incredulously. Aaron could have permanent eye damage. He's in pain right now because of what she did on purpose. My mother waved her hand dismissively. Children are resilient. He'll be fine in an hour. Now, can we please finish preparing dinner without all this unnecessary drama? Tiffany approached me with what I now recognized as her practiced apologetic expression, the one she'd perfected since childhood, to avoid consequences. I'm sorry if Aaron got hurt. That wasn't my intention, she said, voice saccharine. But honestly, he was being difficult. If he had just let me put the cologne on him like I wanted to, none of this would have happened. I stared at her, stunned by the complete lack of genuine remorse. He's 4 years old, Tiffany. He doesn't want cologne because it irritates his skin. I've told everyone about his sensitivities 1,000,000 times. Oh, please, my father interjected. Your mother and I think you've made him soft with all this talk about sensitivities and allergies. When you and Tiffany were kids, we didn't coddle you with all these special treatments. This isn't about coddling, I insisted. This is about respecting basic boundaries and not deliberately hurting a child. My father's expression hardened. Speaking of boundaries, let's talk about how you expect everyone to bend over backward for you and Aaron while contributing nothing in return. Excuse me? We've been supporting Tiffany through some rough patches, he continued. Helping her with her credit card bills, her rent when she falls short. Which I always pay back, Tiffany added quickly. Meanwhile, you refuse to even move back home where we could help with childcare, my mother chimed in. You insist on struggling alone in that tiny apartment. So that was it. My parents had been financially supporting Tiffany's shopping addiction for years. The designer clothes, the luxury vacations she posted on social media, all funded by our parents. Yet when I asked for occasional help with childcare for Aaron, I was lectured about responsibility and independence. I didn't realize struggling to provide a stable home for my son after his father abandoned us was such an inconvenience for you, I said quietly. Thanksgiving dinner was a tense affair. Aaron sat close to me, picking at his food, his eyes still red and puffy. I noticed how he flinched whenever Tiffany moved suddenly near him. The realization that my son felt unsafe around my own family cut deeper than any insult they could hurl at me. After dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom, passing by my father's study, where I overheard my parents and Tiffany in conversation. We need to convince Bertha to move back home, my mother was saying. With her financial situation, she should be grateful for the offer. What about her pride? Tiffany asked. My father laughed. A few more months of struggling to pay rent and childcare will take care of that. Besides, your mother and I aren't getting any younger. Having Bertha and Aaron here would mean someone to help out as we age. So that was their plan. They didn't want to support me. They wanted me to support them, to become their live-in caretaker, under the guise of helping me financially. As I turned to leave, something on my father's desk caught my eye. His phone, open to a photo gallery. I shouldn't have looked, but something compelled me to pick it up. What I saw made my stomach drop. Photos of Tiffany and Jackson, my ex-husband, having lunch together. Multiple photos, spanning dates from 3 months before our separation. In some, they were clearly holding hands across the table. In others, they were leaving restaurants together, his arm around her waist. The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. Had my own sister been involved with my husband before our divorce? Is that why she was moving to our city? My mind raced back through the past year, searching for clues I'd missed. The unexplained weekends when Jackson was working. Tiffany's sudden interest in visiting us more frequently. The knowing looks they sometimes exchanged that I'd attributed to shared jokes. I managed to snap a few quick photos of the evidence with my own phone before replacing my father's exactly as I'd found it. With shaking hands, I returned to the dining room, seeing my family with new, horrified clarity. Later that evening, after helping Aaron brush his teeth and tuck into the guest room bed, I found Tiffany alone in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. We need to talk, I said, closing the door behind me. About what? You're snooping through my phone? Or the way you ruined Thanksgiving dinner with your dramatics? She sipped her wine casually, as if we were discussing the weather. I placed my phone on the counter, displaying one of the photos I'd taken from my father's phone, about you and Jackson. The wine glass paused halfway to her lips. A flicker of surprise crossed her face before her expression settled into something closer to smugness. How did you get that? She didn't deny it. Didn't even try. Does it matter? How long were you seeing my husband behind my back, Tiffany? She set her glass down with deliberate slowness. We didn't plan it. It just happened. Just happened? Multiple times, over several months, while I was at home taking care of our son, the son he abandoned. My voice remained low, but I could feel it vibrating with anger. He was unhappy, Bertha. You were so boring, so completely wrapped up in Aaron that you neglected your marriage. She spoke as if explaining a simple concept to a child. Jackson needed someone who could match his energy, understand his ambitions. And that someone was my sister? The sister I confided in about our marital problems? Tiffany shrugged. I told him he should leave, that it would be better for everyone if he didn't stay in a marriage out of obligation. He never wanted to be a father anyway. The casual cruelty of her words stole my breath. You encouraged my husband to leave his family? I encouraged him to be honest about what he wanted. Her expression softened into false sympathy. You've always been the responsible one, Bertha. The boring one. The one who does everything right. Don't you ever get tired of that role? I stared at her. This stranger wearing my sister's face. What I'm tired of is people confusing responsibility with weakness. Taking care of my son isn't boring. It's the most important thing I'll ever do. And that's exactly why Jackson left. She picked up her wine glass again. Some men need to be the center of attention. I was saved from responding by Aaron's cries from the guest bedroom. When I rushed in, he was sitting up, rubbing his eyes, which looked worse than before. The redness had deepened, and the swelling had increased. "Mommy, my eyes hurt so bad," he whimpered. I checked his temperature. He was warm, possibly developing a fever in response to the chemical exposure. His eyes were crusty at the corners, and he couldn't open them fully through the swelling. "That's it," I murmured, gathering him in my arms. "We're going to the hospital." When I informed my parents, their response was predictably dismissive. "The emergency room? For some irritated eyes?" My mother rolled her eyes. "The bill will be outrageous. Just give him some Benadryl and put him back to bed." "He needs medical attention," I insisted, already gathering our things. "You're creating unnecessary drama again," my father said. "This is why Jackson left, you know. Your constant overreaction to everything." I froze, his words hitting like a physical blow. "Excuse me?" "Jackson called us, you know. Explained everything. How you were suffocating him with your anxiety, your overprotectiveness with Aaron." My father wouldn't meet my eyes as he delivered this blow. "We understand why he needed space." The betrayal was complete. Not only had my sister been involved with my husband, but my parents had sided with him in the divorce. They'd known all along. "We won't be here when you get back from your unnecessary hospital trip," my mother added. "We're tired, and your drama is exhausting." "Fine." I wrapped Aaron in a blanket and carried him to my car, fighting back tears until we were safely out of sight of the house. The emergency room doctor confirmed what I feared: chemical conjunctivitis from the perfume exposure. As he examined Aaron's eyes under specialized lighting, his questions became increasingly pointed. "And you say someone sprayed perfume directly into his eyes?" The doctor's tone was professional but concerned. "My sister did. She claimed it was an accident." I hesitated before adding, "I have reason to believe it was deliberate." His expression grew serious. "I'll need to document this thoroughly. Chemical exposure to the eyes is not something we take lightly, especially in a child this young." While Aaron received treatment, my phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from my parents. "You need to apologize to Tiffany for your accusations. We expect you both home by morning. This hospital nonsense is just attention seeking. Your sister is very upset. Fix this." I turned off my notifications, focusing instead on Aaron, who was finally getting relief from the medicated eye drops. The hospital doors slid open, and to my surprise, my childhood friend Jessica walked in. We'd reconnected recently after she moved back to town to join a law firm. I'd messaged her earlier about the situation, not expecting her to show up in person. "I came as soon as I saw your texts," she said, hugging me tightly. "How's Aaron?" "The doctor says he'll recover, but it's definitely chemical conjunctivitis. They're documenting everything." Jessica's expression hardened as she read through the string of text messages from my family that I showed her. "This is beyond dysfunctional, Bertha. This is abuse." "It's always been this way," I admitted. "I just never saw it clearly until it affected Aaron." While Aaron dozed in the treatment room, finally comfortable with the prescribed drops, I confided in Jessica about everything. Tiffany's deliberate attack on Aaron, my parents' dismissive response, the discovery about Jackson and Tiffany's relationship, my parents taking my ex-husband's side. "There's something else you should know," Jessica said quietly. "The doctor has already spoken with a hospital social worker about this incident. It's standard procedure when there's potential child endangerment." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means someone from Child Protective Services might get involved, not against you," she clarified quickly, seeing my panic, "but against the person who deliberately exposed Aaron to a harmful substance." As I processed this information, Aaron stirred, reaching for my hand. "Mommy," he whispered, his eyes still mostly closed from the swelling. "Can we not go back to Grandma's house?" "Why, sweetie?" His lower lip trembled. "Grandma and Aunt Tiffany say mean things when you're not there. They call me names. And Aunt Tiffany said she was going to teach me a lesson because I spilled juice on her shoes yesterday." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This hadn't been an isolated incident. They'd been emotionally abusing my son behind my back all along. The next morning, after Aaron had been discharged with prescription eye drops and instructions for follow-up care, I returned to my parents' house to collect our belongings. Jessica insisted on coming with me, concerned about how my family might react. "You don't have to do this," I told her as we parked in the driveway. "Yes, I do," she replied firmly. "That's what real family does. They show up." The sound of laughter greeted us as we entered the house. Following the noise to the dining room, I stopped dead in my tracks at the doorway. Seated around the table were my parents, Tiffany, and Jackson, my ex-husband, enjoying what appeared to be a celebratory meal. "Bertha," my mother said, surprised. "We weren't expecting you back so soon." Jackson looked up, his expression shifting from relaxed to guarded. "What is she doing here?" "I live here," Tiffany answered smugly. "She's the uninvited guest now." The scene before me crystallized everything. My family having a joyful meal with the man who had abandoned his son just hours after his sister had deliberately injured that same child. My parents, who should have been concerned about their grandson's well-being, were instead celebrating with the people who had hurt him. Something inside me broke. Tears welled up and spilled over as years of suppressed pain came pouring out. "How could you?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Aaron is in pain. He needed his family. And this is what you're doing?" My mother sighed dramatically. "Here we go with the waterworks. This is exactly what I meant about creating drama." "Drama?" I repeated incredulously. "Your grandson is suffering from chemical burns in his eyes, which you insisted on turning into a federal case," my father countered. "The emergency room doctor seemed to think it was serious enough." Jessica interjected coolly. My mother's eyes narrowed at Jessica's presence. "And who invited you?" "I did," I said, finding strength in my friend's steady support. "Because unlike the people in this room, Jessica actually cares about Aaron's well-being." "We care about Aaron," my mother insisted, her voice rising with indignation. "We've always cared. But you've made him impossible to be around with all your rules and restrictions. Always coddling him, making him weak. You want to know the truth, Bertha?" My mother continued, her facade of politeness finally cracking. "I've always resented how you parade around trying to be perfect. The straight, A student, the responsible one, the perfect mother. It's exhausting. At least Tiffany is honest about who she is." The words hit like physical blows, confirming suspicions I'd harbored for years, but never allowed myself to fully acknowledge. My own mother resented me for trying to be a good person, a good parent. Jackson cleared his throat. "Look, Bertha, I think you're blowing this whole situation out of proportion. Kids get hurt all the time. It's part of growing up. Is that how you justify abandoning your son? By pretending his pain doesn't matter? I asked. I didn't abandon him, Jackson defended. I left you. There's a difference. And maybe if you hadn't been so obsessed with being the perfect mother, so focused on Aaron and not enough on me, things would have turned out differently. So it's my fault you cheated with my sister? I asked flatly. The table fell silent. My father looked between Jackson and Tiffany with raised eyebrows. Apparently, that particular detail hadn't been shared with them. Tiffany recovered quickly. Since everyone knows now, yes, Jackson and I are together, and I'm moving to your city next month. She reached for Jackson's hand across the table. We've already found an apartment in your neighborhood. Actually, my father interjected, we're helping them buy a house, just 3 blocks from your place. The deliberate cruelty of their decision to move my ex-husband and sister right into my neighborhood, where Aaron would constantly be confronted with their betrayal, stunned me into silence. We expect you to be an adult about this, Bertha, my mother added. Family comes first, after all. You need to get over your jealousy for Aaron's sake. For Aaron's sake? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. The same Aaron who's currently suffering because his aunt deliberately hurt him and his grandparents laughed about it? That's enough. My father slammed his hand on the table. I'm tired of your self-righteous attitude. Either you fix this situation with your sister and Jackson right now, or I'm cutting you out of the will. Is that clear? No more financial support. No inheritance. Nothing. The threat hung in the air, his final attempt to control me through money and family obligation. In the past, it might have worked. I might have apologized, smoothed things over, accepted their toxic behavior to maintain the illusion of family harmony. But that was before someone hurt my son. I'll get our things and be out of your way, I said quietly, turning toward the guest room. Bertha, my father called after me, his voice hard. I'm serious about the will. I paused at the doorway, not turning around. So am I about protecting my son. Jessica followed me to the guest room, helping me gather our belongings. As we packed, she whispered, You should know I recorded that entire conversation on my phone. I looked at her in surprise. Lawyer habits, she explained with a small shrug. Always document everything. What they admitted to deliberately harming a child, laughing about it, threatening you financially for trying to protect him. None of that looks good from a legal standpoint. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt a small flicker of hope. Perhaps there was a way forward after all, one where Aaron and I wouldn't be completely at the mercy of my toxic family. You have options, Jessica explained 3 days later, spreading documents across my small kitchen table while Aaron napped in his room. His eyes were looking better, though the doctor warned there might be sensitivity issues for several weeks. After leaving my parents' house, Jessica had insisted we stay with her until I felt safe returning to my apartment. The idea that Tiffany and Jackson would soon be living nearby made my own home feel suddenly hostile. The recording I made establishes several important things, Jessica continued. First, that Tiffany deliberately harmed Aaron. Second, that your parents were negligent in responding to his injury. Third, that Jackson is aligned with people who have demonstrated willingness to hurt his son. What does that mean legally? I asked. It means we can file for an emergency custody modification, preventing Jackson from having Aaron around Tiffany. The medical documentation from the hospital supports this. Chemical conjunctivitis isn't a minor injury, especially in a child with known sensitivities. The idea of taking legal action against my own family felt surreal, yet necessary. Every time I looked at Aaron's still, swollen eyes, I was reminded that this wasn't about me anymore. This was about protecting my son from people who had proven they couldn't be trusted with his safety. I don't want to use Aaron as a weapon in a family fight, I said hesitantly. Jessica's expression softened. This isn't about weaponizing your child, Bertha. This is about establishing firm boundaries to keep him safe. There's a difference. She was right, of course. Setting boundaries wasn't the same as seeking revenge, though I suspected my family wouldn't see it that way. There's something else, Jessica added. As your friend, not your lawyer, I think you need to consider what kind of relationship you want with your parents and sister moving forward. From what I've witnessed, the dynamic is deeply unhealthy. They're still my family, I said automatically, then paused, questioning my own response. But family shouldn't hurt you, should they? Or, laugh when someone hurts your child, Jessica agreed gently. That evening, I received a call from Susan, my principal at the elementary school where I taught third grade. Bertha, I heard about what happened over Thanksgiving, she began. One of the nurses at County General is my sister, in law. She mentioned a teacher from our school brought in her son with chemical eye injuries. I tensed, preparing for judgment or questions I wasn't ready to answer. I'm calling because I wanted to check on you and Aaron, first and foremost, Susan continued, her voice warm with genuine concern. But also because I think I might have a solution to at least one of your problems. Susan explained that the current curriculum coordinator was retiring at the end of the semester, and the position would open in January. It comes with a significant pay increase and more flexible hours. I've already spoken to the superintendent about recommending you for the role. The unexpected lifeline nearly brought me to tears. Susan, I don't know what to say. Say you'll apply. You're more than qualified, Bertha. And frankly, after what you've been through, you deserve some good news. The following week brought more developments. Aaron began sessions with Dr. Marshall, a child psychologist specializing in trauma. After just 2 meetings, the difference in Aaron was noticeable. He seemed less anxious, more willing to talk about his feelings regarding the incident and the larger family situation. Children are remarkably resilient, Dr. Marshall told me during our parent consultation, but they need honest communication and consistent boundaries to feel secure. You're doing the right thing by seeking help and taking steps to protect Aaron from harmful influences. With Jessica's help, I filed the emergency custody modification, requesting that Jackson's visitation rights exclude any contact with Tiffany. The family court took the medical documentation seriously, especially when combined with Aaron's statements to Dr. Marshall about previous incidents of emotional mistreatment by Tiffany and my parents. The legal actions didn't go unnoticed. My parents launched what could only be described as a smear campaign within our extended family and social circle. Suddenly, cousins and old family friends were reaching out, urging me to make peace for everyone's sake and suggesting I was mentally unstable from the stress of single parenthood. They're trying to isolate you, Jessica observed when I showed her the messages. Classic manipulation tactic. Make you feel like you're the problem, so you'll fall back in line. But something unexpected happened. For every family member who pressured me to reconcile, there was a friend, colleague, or parent from Aaron's school who offered support. Susan connected me with other single parents among the school staff. Dr. Marshall recommended a support group for parents dealing with family estrangement. My neighbor Martha started bringing dinner once a week and offering to watch Aaron when I needed a break. Slowly, I began to realize I wasn't as alone as my family wanted me to believe. Then came the most shocking revelation yet. Jessica called me one evening, her voice tense with excitement. "You're not going to believe what I just found out," she said without preamble. "Your sister's excessive spending hasn't just been a minor issue. She's completely bankrupted your parents." "What? How do you know this?" "I have a colleague who specializes in bankruptcy law. Your father consulted with her last week, dropped that he was your father during the meeting. When my colleague mentioned she knew me, and I was friends with you, he abruptly ended the consultation and left. She called me as a courtesy, thinking I might want to know. 'Are you sure it's bankruptcy?' I asked, stunned. 'Foreclosure on their house, to be specific. Apparently, they've been using their home equity to fund Tiffany's lifestyle for years, and the payments have caught up with them. That's why they were so desperate to have you move home. They weren't offering to help you, they needed you to help them.' The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. My parents' insistence that I move back home, their anger when I refused. The sudden plan to have Tiffany and Jackson move to my city. They were trying to salvage their financial situation by bringing everyone under one roof, with me as the responsible earner supporting the household. 'What about the house they were supposedly helping Tiffany and Jackson buy?' I asked. Jessica snorted. 'I'd bet good money that was a complete fabrication. They can barely keep their own home at this point.' The revelation should have brought satisfaction, knowing that my family's poor choices had led to natural consequences. Instead, I felt a complex mixture of vindication and sadness. Despite everything, some part of me still grieved for the family I had wanted them to be, rather than the family they actually were. December brought more changes. I accepted the curriculum coordinator position, which would start after the winter break. The custody modification was granted, officially prohibiting Jackson from having Aaron around Tiffany. Aaron's eyes had fully healed, though the doctor recommended continuing with lubricating drops for another month. I was just beginning to feel like we were finding our footing when the doorbell rang one Saturday morning. Through the peephole, I could see my parents standing in the hallway of my apartment building. "We know you're in there, Bertha," my father called through the door. "Open up. We need to talk." Aaron looked up from his coloring book, his expression instantly anxious. "Is that Grandpa?" "Yes, but you don't have to see him if you don't want to," I assured him, my protective instincts flaring. "You can go play in your room while I talk to them." Aaron nodded solemnly, gathering his crayons. "I don't want to see them," he said quietly, heading to his bedroom. The simplicity of his decision strengthened my resolve. I opened the door, but kept the security chain in place. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. "Can we come in? This isn't a conversation for hallways," my mother replied, her usual imperious tone somewhat subdued. Part of me wanted to refuse, to shut the door and continue the estrangement that had given Aaron and me space to heal. But another part needed closure, needed to face them directly one last time. I closed the door, removed the chain, and reopened it. "You can come in, but make it quick. And keep your voices down. Aaron doesn't want to see you, and I'm respecting his wishes." They stepped into the apartment, looking around with poorly disguised judgment at our modest living space. My father's gaze lingered on a water stain in one corner of the ceiling, my mother's on the second-hand furniture. "What's this we hear about you taking legal action against your own sister?" my father demanded without preamble. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family?" "Protecting my son," I replied simply. "Which is what you should have been doing as his grandparents." "This has gone too far," my mother cut in. "First the hospital drama, then the restraining order against Tiffany." "It's not a restraining order. It's a custody modification that prevents Jackson from exposing Aaron to someone who deliberately harmed him," I corrected. "Semantics," my father dismissed. "The point is, your behavior is tearing this family apart at a time when we should be coming together." "Coming together for what exactly?" My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "We're facing some financial difficulties," my father admitted reluctantly. "The market hasn't been kind to my investments, and there are some unexpected expenses." "You mean the hundreds of thousands of dollars you've given Tiffany over the years?" I asked pointedly. My mother's eyes narrowed. "Who told you that? Does it matter?" "The point is, I know you're facing foreclosure. I know you wanted me to move home to help shoulder the financial burden. And I know you've been manipulating this entire situation to benefit yourselves, not me or Aaron." "That's not fair," my father protested, but the flush creeping up his neck betrayed the truth in my words. "What's not fair is expecting me to clean up the mess you made by enabling Tiffany for decades," I replied. "What's not fair is laughing, when my son was injured, and telling me I'm overreacting when I sought medical care for him." "We've come to offer you a solution," my mother interjected, clearly eager to redirect the conversation. "We've been talking with Tiffany and Jackson. They're willing to help us through this rough patch if you are. We could all live together in the house. Pool our resources. Be a family again." The audacity of their proposal left me momentarily speechless. "You want me to live under the same roof as the sister who deliberately hurt my son and the husband who abandoned us for her?" I finally managed. "Family forgives, Bertha," my mother said solemnly. "Family sticks together through difficult times." Before I could respond, the apartment door opened behind them. Tiffany walked in, followed closely by Jackson. The ambush was complete. "We thought it might be easier if we all talked together," Tiffany explained, her tone reasonable, as if orchestrating a surprise confrontation was perfectly normal behavior. "Clear the air once and for all." Jackson at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Bertha, I know things have been difficult, but this situation with Aaron—" "What situation?" I interrupted. "The one where your girlfriend deliberately sprayed chemicals in his eyes? Or the one where you're dating my sister while our divorce isn't even finalized yet?" "I never wanted to be a father," Jackson blurted out, his composure cracking. You knew that before Aaron was born. I told you I wasn't ready, but you insisted we could make it work. So you resent your own son for existing? I asked incredulously. He resents being trapped in a role he never wanted, Tiffany answered for him. And now you're using Aaron to punish him for finding happiness with me. I'm protecting Aaron from people who have demonstrated they can't be trusted with his safety or, well, being, I corrected. That's not punishment. That's parenting. Always so perfect, aren't you, Bertha? My mother's voice dripped with contempt. The perfect mother, the perfect daughter, except when it comes to helping your own parents in their time of need. If he can't see what a disappointment his mother is, maybe being blind would have been better after all, she added viciously. The apartment fell silent, the cruelty of her words hanging in the air between us. Get out, I said quietly. All of you. Now. You're making a mistake, my father warned. We're offering you a chance to be part of this family again, to have support and help with Aaron. Don't throw that away over one misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I repeated. Is that what you call deliberately harming a child and then laughing about it? Is that what you call bankrupting yourselves to fund Tiffany's lifestyle while refusing to help your grandson? Is that what you call showing up at my door with demands instead of apologies? I moved to the kitchen drawer and retrieved my phone. With a few taps, I pulled up the audio Jessica had recorded at Thanksgiving. Before you leave, I want you to know that I have this. Every word you said about deliberately hurting Aaron, about laughing when he was injured, about threatening me financially for trying to protect him. All of it documented and already submitted to family court. The color drained from my father's face. You recorded us without consent? That's illegal. Actually, in this state, single-party consent is perfectly legal, came Jessica's voice from the now open doorway. She stepped into the apartment, followed by a man I didn't recognize. And as Bertha's attorney, I advised her to document all interactions with family members who have demonstrated willingness to harm her child. Who is this? My mother demanded, gesturing to the man beside Jessica. This is Mark Chen, from the school board, Jessica introduced. He's here about a different matter, but the timing seems appropriate. Mark cleared his throat. Miss Warren, I'm sorry to intrude, but we've been trying to reach Mr. C. Jackson Warren about some financial irregularities discovered in the accounts of Westfield Marketing, where he serves as financial controller. Jackson paled visibly. What are you talking about? The school district had a contract with Westfield for our promotional materials, Mark explained. During a routine audit, our finance team discovered some concerning patterns that suggested inflated invoices and possible embezzlement. The district attorney has opened an investigation. The room erupted in chaos. Jackson vehemently denied any wrongdoing. Tiffany insisted it was all a misunderstanding. My parents demanded to know what this had to do with their financial problems. Through it all, I stood silently, watching the carefully constructed facade of my family crumble under the weight of their own choices and consequences. I think you should all leave now, I said when there was finally a break in the commotion. I have nothing more to say to any of you. One by one, they filed out, each attempting a parting shot that fell flat against my newfound resolve. When the door closed behind them, I leaned against it, exhaling a breath I felt I'd been holding my entire life. Are you okay? Jessica asked gently. I nodded, surprised to discover it was true. I think I am. For the first time in a very long time, I think I actually am. 6 months later, Aaron and I stood in the center of our new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and mismatched furniture. Sunlight streamed through windows twice the size of those in our old place, illuminating the wooden floors and freshly painted walls. What do you think, buddy? I asked as Aaron explored the space that would become his bedroom, significantly larger than his previous one. I love it, Mommy, he declared, spinning in a circle with his arms outstretched. Can I put my dinosaur posters on this wall? You can put them wherever you want, I promised. This is our home now, and we get to make it exactly how we like it. The move to a better apartment in a nicer school district had been made possible by my promotion to curriculum coordinator. The position had come with not only increased pay but also professional recognition that boosted my confidence in ways I hadn't anticipated. Several of my curriculum initiatives had been adopted district, wide, and I'd been invited to present at an educational conference in the fall. Aaron's eyes had fully healed, with no permanent damage according to his last ophthalmologist visit. The emotional healing had taken longer, but his sessions with Dr. Marshall had worked wonders. He laughed more easily now, no longer flinching at sudden movements or apologizing constantly for minor accidents. The past 6 months had brought significant changes in our extended family situation as well. Jackson's involvement in financial fraud at his company had been confirmed through investigation. He'd lost his professional licenses and was awaiting trial, facing potential jail time. His involvement with Tiffany had imploded spectacularly when he attempted to blame her spending habits for driving him to embezzle company funds. Tiffany had indeed moved to our city, though not to the house my parents had falsely claimed they were helping her buy. Instead, she'd taken a small apartment on the opposite side of town, her lifestyle significantly downsized after my parents finally cut off financial support. Our paths rarely crossed, and when they did, we maintained a distant civility for Aaron's sake. My parents had lost their house to foreclosure, eventually moving into a small condo provided by an aunt who took pity on their situation. They'd made several attempts to re-establish contact, each one progressively less demanding as they realized their previous tactics no longer worked on me. I'd allowed limited, supervised phone calls with Aaron, but only after they agreed to respect boundaries I'd established with Dr. Marshall's guidance. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. "That must be the pizza," Aaron exclaimed, racing toward the door. But it wasn't the delivery person. Instead, a small group of people stood in the hallway, arms loaded with housewarming gifts and moving supplies. "Surprise!" called Susan, my principal and now mentor. Beside her stood Jessica, Dr. Marshall, Martha from our old building, and several other friends who'd become our chosen family over the past months. "We figured you could use some help unpacking," Jessica explained, holding up a bottle of wine, "and maybe celebrate a little once we're done." Tears pricked my eyes as I welcomed them in. This gathering represented something I'd never truly had before. People who supported me unconditionally, who valued both Aaron and me for exactly who we were, not what we could do for them. While unpacking kitchen boxes, Susan pulled me aside. "I have some news," she said quietly. "The superintendent wants you to lead the district's curriculum redesign project next year. It would mean another promotion and a significant role in shaping education across the entire district." The opportunity was beyond anything I could have imagined a year ago, when I was still trapped in cycles of family obligation and self-doubt. Later that evening, after Aaron had fallen asleep in his new room and most of our guests had departed, Jessica and I sat on my small balcony, looking out at the city lights. "Do you ever miss them?" she asked gently. "Your family, I mean." I considered the question carefully. "I miss who I wanted them to be," I admitted. The parents who would have protected Aaron, the sister who would have been his ally. But those people never really existed. I was just too afraid to see it. And now? Now I understand that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love, by respect, by how people treat you when you're vulnerable. I gestured toward the apartment where various friends had left evidence of their help. Assembled furniture, organized bookshelves, a refrigerator stocked with essentials. This is what family looks like. People who show up, who care about your well, being without expecting anything in return. Jessica smiled. The support group you started for parents dealing with toxic family dynamics has 30 members now, you know. What you've learned is helping others. The group had begun almost accidentally, after I'd shared my experiences with other parents at Aaron's school who were dealing with similar issues. It had grown organically into a formal support network, meeting bi-weekly with occasional guidance from Dr. Marshall. The most important thing I've learned, I reflected, is that protecting your peace isn't selfish. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who hurt you, even if they share your DNA. The journey from people, pleasing daughter to confident, boundary, setting woman hadn't been easy. There were still days when guilt crept in, when I questioned whether I'd done the right thing by limiting contact with my biological family. But then I would look at Aaron, thriving in an environment free from manipulation and cruelty, and know with certainty that I had made the only choice a good mother could. 2 weeks later, I stood before a small crowd in the school auditorium, accepting my master's degree in educational leadership, a goal I'd deferred for years while trying to please everyone but myself. As applause filled the room, I spotted Aaron in the front row, cheering loudly between Martha and Susan, his face beaming with pride. In that moment, surrounded by people who genuinely celebrated my achievements, who had stood by us through the darkest times and helped us build something better, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for most of my life. Family, I had learned, was not about obligation or blood ties. It was not about enduring abuse in the name of loyalty or sacrificing your well-being for people who would never do the same for you. True family was about mutual respect, about protecting each other, about creating spaces where everyone could grow and thrive. And sometimes, building that family meant having the courage to leave behind the people who had taught you that your worth was measured only by what you could do for them. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between biological family and your own well-being? I know from experience how challenging these situations can be. If my story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for creating the life you and your loved ones deserve. If you found value in this journey, please like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength through difficult times. And consider sharing this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose peace over obligation. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to protect what matters most in your own life.